How's it going? This morning I wanted to talk about pendulums. I want to show you, see that clock back there? I've had that clock for 8 or 9 months and I've never been able to get the time regulated on it. And someone on one of the clock groups recently said, you know, why would my clock be running fast sometimes, slow sometimes? I haven't moved the pendulum. And yeah, with weather changes and temperature changes, things expand and contract and it changes a little bit. But on a daily or every other day basis, it shouldn't be doing that. And this clock, for 8 or 9 months, I've never been able to get the time regulated on it, no matter where I put the pendulum. And this is a new pendulum. This is the one I had on it for 8 or 9 months. It didn't come with a pendulum. I couldn't find a round one on eBay or anything like that, so I liked the style of that one. I put that one on there. I thought, okay, I can just regulate for the weight, right? That's the most important thing, how much it weighs. You can slide it up and down the stick, get it where you need it, but it would never keep the right time. I got this pendulum 2 days ago. It's an antique pendulum. You can tell by the setup on the back. I put it on here, regulated the time, have slid it up and down a little bit, and that's the time. And there's my quartz clock that's always got the right time, so you can see it's keeping the right time finally. It didn't speed up, it didn't slow down. So we need to talk about pendulums a little bit. I got a book when I got this clock to figure out how to work the calendar movement and get it working like I needed to. The only resource that I could find was this book, The Modern Clock. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. So this book is called The Modern Clock, A Study of Timekeeping Mechanism as a Construction, Regulation, and Repair. Ward L. Goodrich was the author. And if you look at this, hopefully you can see that. Recent published, but this is the second edition, published in 1905. So this was written at the time that all these clocks were being made. So I have found it a very good resource. It's got a lot of great topics. Pendulums, compensated pendulums, mercury pendulums, torsion pendulums, and on about anything you might want to read about. So if we're talking about compensated pendulums, bob is supported at the bottom. It rests on a screw. It helps to compensate for expansion of the bob in hot weather by suspending it from the center so it expands. The expansion downward from the pendulum rod will be balanced by the expansion upward from the expansion downward from the pendulum rod will be balanced by the expansion upward from the pendulum bob. You can find the center of gravity. It's just got a lot of cool little tips in it. The center of gravity of your pendulum by balancing the pendulum on a knife edge, and you can figure out what kind of approximately where your bob needs to go. And then if it's a threaded pendulum, like we're talking about, the one with the thread at the bottom, it either has 18 or 36 threads to the inch. So if you move the bob up or down 1/18 of an inch, it makes the clock be a seconds pendulum. It'll gain or lose 1 minute in 24 hours. If it's the 18 thread, you get a 1 minute change for a complete turn of the nut. I thought that was interesting to be able to regulate it that precisely. It talks about what might be going on if your pendulum is wobbling. The pallet staff is not at right angles to the crutch. Talks about how to set the beat. Any roughness of the pendulum rod where it slides on the crutch will stop the clock. Make it as smooth as possible and slightly oiled when setting it up. Sometimes we don't do that. If the bead is off to one side, you bend the verge wire the same way. The little loop at the foot of the crutch should be open just enough to be free. If it's too much, you'll notice the pallet fork will jump when it carries over and it's lost motion. So it's going to take more weight to make your clock work if you're losing motion. Talks about how to set up putting it in beat. And we don't need to talk about that part. It just goes over so much information. Like how there's diagrams in here of how to perfectly set your verge onto the escapement wheel. It talks about the lift, the drop, and the lock of the verge. Deadbeat escapements. There was something I wanted to show you about pendulums, and I might have skipped it. Hang on, I'll find it. I found what I was looking for. Talks about the side shake for pivots should be from 0.002 to 0.004 of an inch. And it's seldom exceeded except in cuckoos. In cuckoos, much greater freedom is necessary because the movement is exposed to dust which enters freely at the holes for the pendulum and the weight change, so that such a clock would stop if given the ordinary amount of side shake. So don't forget to check your end shake. This chart talks about pendulum lengths, clock trains, and lengths of pendulum. If you don't have a pendulum that came with your clock, you can count the wheels, the pinions, the teeth on the escapement wheel. It'll show you how long your pendulum should be. And then it even talks about Mark's bucket test. But they used shot at the time. Hang a small tin pail on the weight cord and fill it with shot to make the clock keep time. And then when you weigh your tin bucket and your shot, you're going to add from 8 to 16 ounces. I don't know that you need a whole lot with cuckoo clocks. This is talking about a lot of different kinds of clocks, but you need to add extra weight. The extra weight is added as reserve power to counteract the increase of friction produced by thickening of the oil. So, if y'all are missing your pendulum, lots of good info in there about how to find the right one. If your clock, most of the time you can find one that's pretty close and the clock works pretty good, but if you have a clock that you have done like me for 8 months and you cannot get it to keep time correctly, look at your pendulum. I hope this helped. I hope y'all get this book. It's got tons of good information in it. It even shows how to cut your own escapement wheel. I mean, it's got, this book is amazing. Leave me some comments. Let me know what y'all have found out. Thanks for watching.